Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of my blog in audio form. I'm Melody Hwang, and today I'm excited to introduce a new way to experience my blog posts. A few days ago, I published a new blog on my website, melodyhwangmusic.com, titled New Songs and Missions. My mom suggested that I record myself reading it because she thought there might be others like her who prefer listening over reading. So I decided to give it a try. Writing has always been a passion of mine, and I put a lot of care into each post. Whether you've been following along from the beginning or you're new to my blog, I hope you'll enjoy this new format. Without further ado, let's dive into today's post, New Songs and Missions, in audiobook style. New Songs and Missions, originally published on August 17th, 2024. 2 weeks ago, before my parents flew back to Taipei, my mom challenged me to write a new song each week. Since then, I've written 2 songs. The first, an English song, My Trust is in You, which has since been translated into Japanese, called Shinjiru. And the second, a Japanese song, which I wrote with 2 Japanese friends during a creative exercise at Worship Community Night this past Saturday. It reminds me of what my friend said before I moved to Japan, and that I wrote about in my post, Excited and Wary. Something you should know about Melody is that she thrives on challenges. I guess she was right. Because what does it mean to thrive if not to overcome challenges? Germination is the process of a seed breaking out of its shell. Only then can it begin to take root and sprout. Only then can it thrive. Yet, to break out of one's shell is not always a comfortable process. Since moving to Tokyo, life has been just the right amount of uncomfortable. As I wrote about in my last post, I live in a share house, and for the last week I've been sharing a room with 2 other girls. However, this arrangement is only temporary, as we're in the process of getting a new share house, which I will be moving into. And there, I'll be able to have my own room so I can write songs and record music as much as I want to. But is that really a good thing? Of course, writing new songs is great, but this quote-unquote abundance of opportunity and time is an illusion. I also had my own room when I was living in Taipei, and it's not like I was constantly writing new songs. Like how the friends who visit from out of town might end up seeing more of us than the friends who live a few blocks away, the piano sitting in the corner of our room gathers more dust than the piano at church miles away. Without a sense of urgency, opportunity and time often go wasted. The person who only has Monday morning to work on a task will for sure get it done sooner than the person who has all the time in the world to do the same thing. And that's been me the last 2 weeks. Pastor Masa and Esther have graciously allowed me to use the overflow room of the church for a few hours on Mondays and Tuesdays, when there is no school or cafe, to write songs and record music. And that's what I've been doing. If I had my own room and piano this whole time, there would have been no need to block out that time, no need to wake up early in the morning so I can get to church before 8 a.m. and have enough time to write, record, and film everything before it's time to go. And that's why I'm grateful that since moving to Tokyo, life has been just the right amount of uncomfortable. Some of that discomfort is outside of my control. For example, not being able to make music at home. As a result, songwriting these days requires active prioritization, and I find myself excited to wake up early so that I can get to church earlier, so that I can have more time to write songs. Scarcity breeds gratitude. On the other hand, some of that discomfort is by choice. Instead of taking the train to church, I like to walk. Each drop of sweat trickling down my forehead under the heat of the rising sun reminds me that anything of value requires sacrifice. Health and fitness requires sacrifice. Sanity and peace of mind requires sacrifice. Sometimes that looks like walking instead of taking the train, waking up early instead of sleeping in. When we work out our muscles, they stretch and tear. That's how they grow. Same with our lives. Growth only happens when we're being stretched beyond our comfort zones. Same goes for missions. Kingdom expansion requires sacrifice. I mentioned the second song I wrote in Japan is a Japanese song. One of the collaborators on the song is a Japanese girl named Marina. I would have loved to invite her to film the demo with me, except that she moved to Sendai on Monday morning. She and 4 others from Awakening Tokyo have been sent as missionaries to Sendai, a city 4 hours by car northeast of Tokyo, to plant a church there and evangelize on the streets 5 days a week. Their team includes 4 native Japanese and 1 missionary from the Netherlands. What motivates someone to sell all they have and move to a new city, a new country, to preach the gospel? For sure, it is not comfort. For sure, it is not self-preservation. I imagine that missionaries who lay down their lives for the gospel have discovered a purpose to life beyond these things. In the words of William Wallace in the movie Braveheart, every man dies, not every man truly lives. What does it mean to truly live, if not to pursue pleasure and comfort? What is it that sets apart the life of a man like William Wallace, or Jesus for that matter, from the billions of other lives that came and went over the course of history? Scenes from Braveheart flashed through my mind. Hailed by many as the greatest of Scots, William Wallace was a Scottish warrior and leader of the Scottish resistance against the brutal King Edward I of England in the 1300s. He was eventually betrayed and executed in London, culminating in perhaps the most iconic scene from Braveheart, when Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, having just endured gruesome torture, lays on the executioner's table preparing to be disemboweled, in the middle of a public square with hundreds of onlookers, and with his last ounce of strength, draws his final breath and shouts, "Freedom!" His shout rings throughout the square. Those who jeered on his torture just moments ago fall silent. What does it mean to truly live? Having something worth dying for. Both William Wallace and Jesus died gruesome deaths. As inspiring as their lives were, if they had not died the way they did, for what they did, would we still be reading or watching movies about them? Jesus saves us not because he lived a good life. We don't put our hope in him because he spoke profoundly while he was alive. Our salvation is found in him because he literally died, and then he rose from the dead. Without death, there is no resurrection. Without sacrifice, there is no value. Without discomfort, there is no growth. And that leads me back to new songs and missions. I choose to write even when it's inconvenient because I've decided to value creativity over comfort. My friend Marina chose to move to Sendai as a missionary because she's decided following the Lord is more important than staying in Tokyo where she first met him. At the end of the day, we are all called to missions. It may not look the same as Marina, but Jesus invites each of us to leave our comfort zones and follow him. That may look like moving to a new city, or sharing the gospel with our coworker, or dealing with the offense in our heart. Even something as simple as washing the dishes with a cheerful heart. That could be the Lord's invitation to you right now, to find him in the place of serving. He is the servant of all. The Lord may also put on your heart to support those who have been sent. If you want to give financially to what the Lord is doing in Sendai, I've included the link in the description of this episode. I look at songwriting as missions as well. Who knows how many people one song can reach? Who knows the power of song to touch and transform hearts? As a songwriter, I may never know the full scope of my music's reach, but that isn't my concern. Whether or not the gospel is received, the evangelist must evangelize. Even if the people don't listen, the prophet must prophesy. I keep writing because he compels me. Pastor Esther says that I am a musicianary. Nevertheless, besides writing songs, I will also be going on a few mission trips this year. Coming up in September, I will be going to Brisbane, Australia, with Pastors Masa and Esther and a few others from our church. There we will join the Revival Stadium Conference, Awakening Australia, led by Pastor Ben Fitzgerald, who is also Pastor Masa and Pastor Esther's spiritual father. In Brisbane, we will be going out on the streets, healing the sick, and witnessing to the lost. Some of the local Chinese Christian community in Brisbane will also host an event on Tuesday night, September 24th, where I will share and sing. More details to come. Then in November, Pastor Esther has invited me to go with them to Germany, to Pastor Ben Fitzgerald's base, Awakening Europe, the spiritual covering of Awakening Tokyo. I personally believe it will be a time of connection, alignment, and refinement. If you feel led to partner with me financially for these mission trips, you can visit my website at melodyhwangmusic.com. We've added a section on the homepage where you can donate directly and track the progress of our fundraising efforts. If you'd like to support me as a musicianary on a one-time or monthly basis, you can do so through Modern Day Missions, which provides tax-deductible receipts for U.S. citizens. At first, I didn't think about publicly fundraising for these mission trips. I thought, if the Lord wants me to go, He will provide a way. But my mom encouraged me to share about it and give others the opportunity to sow into what the Lord is doing in Japan, Australia, and Germany. And the main thing that I see the Lord doing, at least in my own heart, is reigniting a zeal for reaching the lost. What does God really care about? And do I care about what He cares about? God's will is that none should perish. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. He is the God who leaves the 99 to find the one. Every single person He fashioned in their mother's womb, whether they are Buddhist or Muslim, atheist or New Age, His heart is for their hearts to hear the gospel and turn to Him. This is what drew me to Awakening Tokyo in the first place. Personally, I had never met a community of young people who cared so much about what God cares about, reaching the lost. They do outreaches after church every single Sunday, not just hosting attractive events to bring people in, but going out and preaching the gospel to those who would never find themselves near a church door. I am excited to see what God will do in Australia and Germany. If what I'm sharing excites you too, and you would like to partner with me to go to these nations, you are welcome to check out my website, melodyhwangmusic.com, to find out how to support. Please pray that God will prepare my heart to be open and humble to hear what He is saying, and bold and faithful to do what He is doing. As Jesus said to His disciples, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of His own accord, but only what He sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise." And He continued, "For the Father loves the Son and shows Him all that He Himself is doing. And greater works than these will He show Him, so that you may marvel." John chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. Let us marvel together what the Father is doing and what He wants to do through you and me. That may look like writing new songs or going on missions. It may also look like choosing to stay awake at 3 a.m. to talk to your Uber driver as he drives you home after an international flight. This was me last night. I'm back in Taiwan for 10 days to record a live studio album and sing at a friend's wedding. I was supposed to fly this afternoon, but my flight was canceled due to typhoon impact. So last minute I snagged the one remaining seat out of Tokyo on a red-eye flight. Before leaving the girls' house, they prayed for me. Lord, bless Melody's trip back to Taiwan and the people she will meet along the way. I remember at the time thinking, evangelism? I'm not sure I'll have time for that. Turns out God always has time for reaching the lost. The only question is if we will be His hands and feet. Over the 45-minute car ride, my Uber driver and I talked about God, religion, and family. I was able to share with him the full gospel, how Jesus died for our sins and rose from the dead so that we might be reconciled to the Father because He loves us so much. I also gave him the short version of our family's testimony, how God saved my parents' marriage and restored our relationships. By the time we reached home, he was saying, "I think God put you in my car for a purpose. Maybe we were meant to meet, and I was meant to hear these things you've shared with me tonight." He even added, "Maybe we will meet in church one day." "Yes, maybe we will," I smiled. and not just in this life, but eternally in heaven too. And I felt the joy and providence of God in that moment. So this is what it means to truly live, to thrive. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of my blog in audio form. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts and stories in this new format. If you liked what you heard, be sure to check out my other blog posts on melodyhwangmusic.com. I'll be continuing to record future blog posts in audio form, so subscribe for more episodes. You can find all the links I mentioned, including the landing page for supporting my upcoming mission trips to Australia and Germany, in the description of this episode. If you have any feedback or thoughts you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out through my website or social media. Until next time, take care, and thanks again for listening.